My name was Alex. For 19 years, I had existed rather than lived, a background hum in the vibrant symphony of college life. I was the archetypal, forgettable kind, not a target for bullies, nor a contender for popularity, just a fleeting image in the periphery of everyone's vision. My constant companions were the whispers of anxiety, the frantic drumming of my heart whenever prolonged eye contact was made, and the familiar, mundane rhythm of life in my small university town. The day it all began, the day my existence took an unforeseen detour, was an ordinary Tuesday. Rain, a thin, persistent drizzle, mirrored my mood, making my clothes cling uncomfortably and my already fragile confidence shrink a little further. I was on my way to pick up my usual anxiety medication, a prescription I'd been on for over a year, a familiar ritual in my otherwise uneventful life. Alex Miller, the pharmacist, called out, her voice a calm, even tone. I stepped forward, a ghost of a hesitation in my stride. She handed me a small, white paper bag, its contents rattling softly. I didn't check it. Who does really? Trusting the routine, I went home, swallowed a pill, and let the familiar haze of medication blur the sharp edges of my world. The ceiling of my small dorm room became a canvas for my wandering thoughts, a comforting blur against the backdrop of my uneventful life. 3 days later, a subtle shift began. A strange tenderness blossomed in my chest, not a sharp pain, but a dull, insistent pressure. Then came a warmth, a slow, deep burn in my thighs, as if something was stirring beneath my skin. Yet I dismissed it, attributing it to a new anxiety symptom, a phantom ache in my constantly worried mind. My thoughts were elsewhere, consumed by a far more pressing development. Leo had finally texted me. Leo. My childhood friend, my constant, my anchor. He was the one who had, with infinite patience, taught me to hold a pencil correctly in 3rd grade, his gentle fingers guiding mine. He was the boy who, for reasons I still couldn't fathom, had kept me within his orbit all these years, even as he blossomed into something breathtakingly beautiful, magnetically charismatic, utterly impossible. His message was deceptively simple: come over. Need your help with something. Wear something comfy. Comfy for me meant sweats, a hoodie, my personal uniform of invisibility. I didn't think twice. But when I arrived at his apartment, something in his smile seemed sharper, a glint I hadn't noticed before. You look like crap, Alex, he chuckled, pulling me inside with an unexpected strength. His apartment, usually a chaotic mess of books and art supplies, now smelled distinctly of lavender and vanilla. You look tired, he observed, his eyes lingering on my face, a touch too long for comfort. I mumbled something about not sleeping well, the usual excuse. He nodded slowly, then walked over to his dresser, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Can I ask you something kind of weird? He asked, turning back to me. I shrugged, a nervous flutter in my stomach. Always. He held up a soft, lilac-colored nightgown, its delicate fabric shimmering in the dim light. Would you put this on for me? I froze, a bewildered what, escaping my lips. I just need to see how it fits on someone skinny like you, he explained, his voice smooth and persuasive. You're the same size as my cousin, and she's visiting next week. I don't want to give her something unflattering. My throat went dry. Leo had always been like this, bold, unpredictable, a whirlwind of spontaneous ideas. But this felt different. I don't know if... Come on, Alex, he cajoled, stepping closer, his hand gently touching my arm. It's just fabric. You're helping me, please. And then he unleashed that smile, the one that always made me forget to breathe, made me forget every logical argument, every internal protest. Okay, I mumbled, a reluctant sigh escaping my lips. The moment the fabric touched my skin, something inexplicable shifted. My body reacted, not just with confusion, but with an unsettling sense of familiarity. The silky material glided over my chest, which felt softer, fuller than it should have. I looked in the mirror, and the boy staring back wasn't quite me anymore. And Leo, he saw it too. You're prettier than I expected, he whispered, almost to himself, his voice laced with a strange awe. I blinked, a bewildered what on my lips. Nothing, he said quickly, his smile returning, a little too bright. You want to try makeup, too? What? Don't freak out, he said, holding up a shimmering tube of lip gloss. Just a little. Trust me. And somehow I nodded. That night, he sent me home with a hug that lingered, a little too long, a little too intimate. As I lay in bed, the lilac nightgown hidden beneath my hoodie, I pulled out the pill bottle. That's when I finally noticed the label, estradiol for Rachel Miller. My heart stopped. I wasn't Rachel. I was Alex. They'd given me someone else's prescription. Estrogen. I had been taking estrogen. And for some reason, I didn't feel angry. I felt something far more dangerous. Curious. I should have returned the bottle. That would have been the normal, logical response. Call the pharmacy, explain the mistake, get my correct anxiety medication, take a long, hot shower, and scrub away the lingering scent of lavender and vanilla. Forget the unsettling way that silky nightgown had clung to my changing body. But I didn't. Instead, I found myself staring at the label again, the words, estradiol 2 milligrams. Take once daily, burned into my consciousness. I hadn't even noticed the pills looked different, so lost was I in the usual haze of academic anxiety and Leo's increasingly frequent, increasingly captivating texts. My hand hovered over the trash bin for a full 5 minutes that night, a silent battle raging within me. Then, with a sigh that was more surrender than decision, I put the bottle back in the drawer. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual, drawn by an invisible pull towards the mirror. It wasn't vanity that propelled me, but a burgeoning sense of being a stranger in my own skin. My chest, I noticed, looked subtly fuller, not drastically, but enough to catch my eye. My skin felt softer, a new, silken texture against my fingertips. My jawline, once sharply defined, seemed a fraction less angular. And there was this strange, unprecedented calm in my mind, as if the usual static of my anxiety had dialed down a notch, replaced by a quiet hum of curiosity. Without a second thought, driven by an impulse I couldn't articulate, I took another pill. By the 5th day, Leo's texts took on a new, playful tone. You looked cute in that lilac. Come over again. I got something fun planned. I didn't hesitate this time. His something fun turned out to be a full vanity table setup, a dazzling array of makeup brushes, lipsticks, curlers, and foundations. You trust me, right? He asked, his hand gently guiding me towards the chair. I nodded, too mesmerized by the way his eyes seemed to soften, to almost glow, every time he looked at me. He ran his fingers through my hair, brushing it back from my face. You've always had nice eyes, Alex, he murmured, his voice a low, intimate rumble. But you hide them. My cheeks burned with a blush that had nothing to do with makeup. He dabbed primer on my face, then foundation, his touch surprisingly light and precise. Then something cold and metallic touched my lashes, mascara. Breathe, Alex, he whispered, as if sensing the tremor in my body. He added blush, then lip gloss, a touch of shimmery shadow over my eyelids, transforming my face with each stroke. When he spun the chair around to face the mirror, I gasped. The reflection wasn't a boy wearing makeup. It was a girl. One who looked like she belonged in Leo's world, soft, fragile, beautiful in a confusing, terrifying way. That's not me, I whispered, my voice barely audible. He crouched beside me, his lips near my ear, his breath warm against my skin. But it could be. That night, when I got home, I couldn't stop staring at the reflection I'd wiped away. Was I still me? I had let him do all that. I hadn't said no, hadn't flinched. Worse, a treacherous, undeniable part of me had liked it. The next few days blurred into a dreamlike sequence. Each morning I woke earlier, drawn to the mirror, and took the pill. By day 10, the soft pressure in my chest had blossomed into a budding sensitivity. My shirts clung differently, my jeans hugged my hips in a new, unfamiliar way. My hips, I realized with a jolt, weren't what they used to be. Finally, driven by a growing unease, I Googled gynecomastia and, with a knot of dread in my stomach, effects of estrogen on the male body. What I read made my stomach twist and my heart race with a frantic rhythm. By week 2, Leo's texts shifted tone again, growing bolder, more insistent. Bring your hoodie, but wear that cute tank underneath. Can I paint your nails this time? Just for fun. You're coming over, right, pretty thing? That last phrase, pretty thing, made me pause. Was it a joke? A tease? A test? I didn't ask. I just went. His house smelled of jasmine that night, a heady, sweet scent that filled the air. There was wine, soft music, flickering candles, and a pile of clothes on his bed. Strip, he said playfully, tossing me a silky pink bra and panty set. I laughed nervously. You're joking. I'm not, he smiled, his eyes glinting. Let's see if you've been taking your medicine. My heart plummeted. What? He held up the estradiol bottle. My estradiol bottle. You left it in your hoodie pocket last time, he said, his voice sugary sweet, yet sharp as a razor's edge. You didn't think I'd notice? My mouth opened, but no words came out. He stepped closer, his gaze intense. Don't be scared, Alex. I'm not mad. In fact, I'm impressed. I looked down, my hands trembling. You haven't stopped, have you? He whispered. I couldn't answer. He stepped forward, cupping my softening jaw in his hands. You're becoming exactly what I always saw in you. I should have run. I should have left his house that night, snatched the bottle, dumped its contents, called my doctor, screamed, told someone. But I didn't. I stood there in Leo's room, holding a pink bra in trembling fingers, my heartbeat loud in my ears, my breath shallow and ragged. He watched me, unblinking, a strange mix of triumph and tenderness in his eyes. You're not scared of a little lace, are you? He said, his voice smooth as silk. Come on, you've already come this far. I swallowed, a dry, uncomfortable gulp. I stepped behind the curtain he'd strung up across the corner of the room, a makeshift dressing area. And I changed. The panties clung to me in a way that made me feel vulnerable, exposed, yet undeniably present. But the bra, that was something else entirely. It didn't fit perfectly yet, but there was enough softness on my chest now to press into the cups, to fill them slightly, and that terrified me, yet also didn't feel entirely wrong. When I stepped out, Leo's eyes lit up, a spark of pure delight. He came closer, slowly, circling me like a sculptor inspecting their masterpiece. You've changed more than I thought, he whispered. Your waist, your legs, even your posture. I felt my face flush a deep, burning crimson. It's the pills, right? It's not permanent. I can still stop. He tilted his head, a knowing look in his eyes. Is that what you want, Alex? I blinked, my mind a whirl of conflicting emotions. He pressed a finger to my lips, silencing my hesitant reply. Shoo. He turned me to face the mirror. The girl staring back wasn't just a boy in girl's underwear. She looked delicate, her hair a little longer than I remembered, her skin smooth and pale, breasts small, but undeniably forming, hips subtly curved. I reached out and touched the glass. My reflection did the same, a ghost of a touch. I didn't recognize myself, and a terrifying part of me didn't want to. Leo stepped behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. You always had this inside you, he murmured, his voice a soft caress. I just helped bring her out. His lips brushed my ear, a feather-light touch. You're not losing yourself, Alex. You're becoming her. That night, I went home still wearing the panties underneath my jeans. I didn't even realize it until I was halfway to bed. And I didn't take them off. The next morning, my chest hurt, not just sore, but aching, like something beneath the skin was growing, stretching. I looked in the mirror, shirtless, and I saw it. Not just soft skin, but curves, undeniably feminine lines. My voice cracked when I tried to say my name, a strange, high-pitched sound I barely recognized. I gripped the edge of the sink, trembling, the panic rising in my throat. What's happening to me? My skin felt too tight, my reflection betraying me with every glance. I dug through my drawer and found the pill bottle, my hands hovering over it like a pair of frantic birds. Then, with a desperate sob, I dropped it back in and slammed the drawer shut. At school, everything felt wrong, shifted, subtly out of place. I caught people looking at me differently. A girl in my English class, usually absorbed in her phone, glanced at my chest, then quickly looked away, her eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and curiosity. A guy in the hallway, rushing past, bumped into me and muttered, "Sorry, miss," without even looking up. Mississippi. The word echoed in my ears, a foreign sound, and I nearly collapsed right there in the crowded corridor. When I arrived at Leo's apartment that evening, I didn't even have to knock. He opened the door as if he'd been waiting, a knowing look in his eyes. "I thought you might be freaking out by now," he said, his voice calm and even. I didn't answer, simply stumbled inside, my knees weak with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. He pulled me gently towards him, holding my face in his hands, his thumbs tracing the line of my jaw. "You're beautiful, Alex." "I'm not," I choked, tears pricking at my eyes. "I'm not supposed to be." "But you are," he countered, his voice firm, unwavering. "And it's okay to be scared." He leaned closer, his eyes burning with an intense, fierce emotion, affection, obsession, possession, all swirling together in their depths. "I want to help you through this, but only if you let me." I stared at him, wanting to scream, wanting to cry, wanting to run, but instead I nodded, a silent, trembling surrender. I didn't go home that night. Leo handed me one of his oversized sleep shirts, its soft fabric smelling of his cologne and laundry detergent, and a pair of cotton shorts so soft they felt like clouds against my newly sensitive skin. When I asked where I should sleep, he just smiled, a disarming, gentle curve of his lips. "In my bed, obviously." "You're not sleeping on the couch." "You're not a guest." His tone didn't invite debate, and I found myself crawling into his bed, the fresh scent of his sheets a strange comfort. In the morning, the sunlight caught the curves of my silhouette in the mirror, curves that hadn't been there a month ago. And Leo just watched me, his gaze now changed. It wasn't playful anymore. It was proud, possessive, as if he had sculpted me, as if I was his creation. He handed me a steaming cup of coffee, its warmth a stark contrast to the cold knot in my stomach, and said, "We need to talk about your name." I blinked, confused. "My name?" He sat on the edge of the bed, legs crossed like a queen on her throne. "You're changing, Alex. Whether you meant to or not, people are noticing. Soon, someone's going to call you he, and the world's going to glitch. You need something softer." I laughed nervously, a sound that was far too high-pitched. I'm not a girl." He tilted his head, a challenge in his eyes. "Say that again." I paused, the words catching in my throat. "I'm not a..." He stood, walked to his vanity, and took the mirror, holding it up in front of me. "Look me in the eyes and say it." I tried, but my throat tightened, the words refusing to form because the reflection staring back no longer looked like the old Alex. Not fully. My features were softer, my lips looked fuller, my collarbone more visible, delicate. Leo whispered behind me, his voice a silken caress, "You're not Alex anymore. You're something better." That afternoon, he took me shopping. Not just to observe, but to try things on, he insisted. And I was too numb, too lost in my own spiraling thoughts to fight him. We walked through racks of dresses, skirts, tops that shimmered in the fluorescent light of the boutique. Everything felt surreal, as if I were floating through a dream. Leo handed me outfit after outfit, each one bolder than the last. "Try this. It'll hug your waist. This will show off your new neckline. Ooh, this blouse screams you." "You mean screams you?" I muttered, a weak attempt at defiance. He grinned. "Maybe we're not so different." And then came the changing room. A soft pink dress with delicate lace trim. "Just try it," he said, his voice persuasive. I stepped inside, stripped, and slid the fabric over my skin. It fit perfectly, like a second skin. When I turned around and looked in the mirror, I didn't see Alex pretending. I saw a girl standing there, flushed and trembling, a stranger, yet undeniably myself. I stepped out, unsure, but Leo's reaction said everything. His mouth parted slightly, his eyes sparkling with an almost childlike wonder. "I knew it," he whispered. "You're breathtaking." My knees wobbled. A salesgirl walked by, glanced at me, and smiled warmly. "You have great legs, sweetie." My heart stopped. Leo squeezed my hand, a triumphant glint in his eyes. "You're passing." We walked through the mall after that, me still in the dress because Leo insisted it looked too good to take off. People glanced, some smiled, others just looked. A group of guys walked past, and one of them whistled. My stomach twisted, my face went red, a flush of embarrassment and something else I couldn't name. I wanted to scream, to disappear, but a part of me, an awful, confusing part, liked it. Later, in the car, I broke down. I don't know who I am anymore, I whispered, tears rolling unchecked down my cheeks. This wasn't supposed to happen. Leo reached over, tucked my hair behind my ear, his thumb brushing away a tear. It was supposed to happen, he said softly, his voice full of conviction. You just didn't know it. That night, he gave me a necklace, a small silver charm with a name engraved on it. Riley. I looked up at him, bewildered. It suits you, he said, his voice gentle. Still close to Alex, but softer, prettier. He clasped it around my neck, and I didn't stop him. The necklace stayed on. I tried to take it off the next morning, but the clasp caught in my hair, and instead of fighting with it, I just left it. Riley. The name echoed in my head like a ghost of something I hadn't realized I'd lost, or perhaps, something I was only just beginning to find. At school, I kept my hoodie zipped up tight, sleeves pulled low over my hands, head down. A futile attempt at clinging to my disappearing anonymity. But even through the distorted reflections in shop windows, I caught glimpses of a body that didn't move like it used to, hips with a subtle sway, fingers that looked too slender, a walk that wasn't quite mine anymore. And when I spoke in class, a hushed giggle from behind me, followed by a whispered question. Is that a girl or a guy? I froze, the blood draining from my face. Leo knew something was wrong the second I walked in that night. He had his arms crossed, leaning against his bedroom door, like a sentinel waiting to intercept me. You look tense, he said, his voice light, almost teasing. I collapsed onto his bed, the weight of the day's encounters pressing down on me. I think people are starting to notice. He didn't flinch. Good. I looked up, bewildered. Good. He sat beside me and lifted my chin with one finger, his gaze unwavering. You're blossoming. Why would you hide that? Because I'm not, my voice cracked, a desperate plea. I winced at the high-pitched sound. He smiled, a gentle, understanding curve of his lips. Want to do something fun? I hesitated, a flicker of apprehension. What kind of fun? He stood and pulled open his closet, rolling out an entire makeup vanity on wheels. Brushes, palettes, lipsticks arranged by hue, foundations in a dozen shades, perfumes, a small ring light glowing soft and golden. It was a treasure trove, a professional artist's arsenal. You bought all this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. No, he said, a mischievous glint in his eyes. I already had it. I just never had anyone special enough to share it with. He patted the stool beside the vanity. Come on, Riley. Tonight, I'm teaching you how to really be beautiful. The first stroke of foundation across my cheek made me flinch, a sudden sensitivity I hadn't expected. He giggled, a light, airy sound. You're so sensitive now. He showed me how to blend, contour, highlight, his hands moving with practiced grace. How do you know all this? I asked, amazed by his skill. He gave me a sly look. I study people. He applied eyeshadow next, soft pinks and golds that shimmered in the ring light. Mascara, lip gloss, a light touch of blush. Then he handed me the mirror and I froze. This wasn't me. This wasn't Alex. This girl, Riley, had soft eyes and lips that glistened, cheekbones dusted with shimmer, brows shaped and expressive. She looked scared, but beautiful, and worse, she looked real. I didn't speak for a while, just stared at the stranger in the mirror. Leo knelt beside me, his voice a soft murmur. You see her, don't you? I nodded slowly, a tear tracing a path through the meticulously applied makeup. She's always been there, he whispered. You just needed someone to bring her out. I looked at him, confusion warring with a strange sense of longing. Why are you doing this? That's when his smile changed, flickered into something darker, more complex. You really want to know? I nodded again, a tremor running through me. He reached into his nightstand drawer and pulled out a photograph. My blood ran cold. It was a picture of me, Alex, taken 2 years ago, sitting on the back porch of my old house, dressed in one of my sister's skirts. I hadn't even known anyone was watching. I looked up at him, horror flooding me, a sudden, sickening realization dawning. You knew. I saw you, he said softly, his eyes never leaving mine. And everything clicked into place with a horrifying clarity. I didn't judge you, Riley. I understood you. You looked so peaceful, so real. But you buried it, hid from it. He leaned in, his lips barely an inch from mine, his voice dropping to a whisper. So, I made a decision. My heart thudded in my chest, a frantic drum against my ribs. If you wouldn't become her yourself, I'd help you do it. You planned all this, I accused, my voice thin and reedy. He kissed my cheek, a feather-light touch. Not all of it. Some of it just happened. But once I saw how easily you slipped into it, how beautiful you were, I couldn't stop. Tears burned in my eyes, hot and stinging. But that's not fair. I never said I played fair, he whispered, a hint of something dangerous in his eyes. But I never lied either. You like how she looks. I saw it in your eyes. And he was right, because even now, shaking, exposed, betrayed, I kept glancing back at the mirror, captivated by the reflection of Riley. Later that night, I sat on his bed, still wearing the makeup he'd applied, my hoodie lying on the floor, one of his sleep tanks clinging to my softening curves, my hair clipped up. I hated her for seeing me. I hated her for not being wrong. The morning light slipped through Leo's sheer curtains, warm and golden. I sat at his vanity, staring at my reflection. I hadn't meant to sit there, but I found myself in the chair without thinking. My hand brushed over a lip gloss tube like it was instinct, and it scared me. I wasn't dressed up, not yet, but my skin looked softer, my lips pink even without gloss. The necklace Leo gave me, Riley, still clung to my collarbone like it belonged there. I should have gone home, but he walked in with 2 coffees, placed one in front of me, and kissed the top of my head like it was normal, like we did this every morning. I want to take you out today, he said casually. I blinked. Out. Just a quick coffee. You're ready. I felt cold inside. No, I'm not. You passed at the mall. You crave that feeling. You're just too scared to admit it. He cut me off gently. What's your real fear, Riley? That someone will recognize you, or that they won't. 20 minutes later, I was back in the pink sundress. Not tight, not revealing, just pretty. Leo brushed out my hair and pinned it with 2 small pink clips, applied light makeup, lip gloss, and his favorite perfume behind my ears. When I looked in the mirror, I saw the kind of girl I would have once stared at from a safe distance. Now I was her. I trembled. You look amazing, Leo said, his voice laced with pride. Trust me. The coffee shop was just 4 blocks away, each step feeling like walking through a dream I couldn't wake up from. I kept my head down, my arms crossed, a shield against the world, but nobody stared. Nobody laughed. A man held the door open and smiled. After you, miss. Mississippi. My knees nearly gave out. I took the seat near the window while Leo ordered, and for a brief, fleeting moment, I forgot to feel afraid. I sipped my iced latte, crossed my legs like I'd seen Leo do 1,000 times, and for the first time in weeks, felt a semblance of normal. Until I heard a voice behind me. Hey, do you know if this table's free? My blood turned to ice. I looked up. Josh from high school. He was standing right there, holding a muffin and a drink, smiling politely, looking directly at me. He didn't flinch, didn't raise an eyebrow, didn't recognize me. I forced a smile and nodded to the next table. He sat down, plugged in his earbuds, and didn't glance my way again. Leo returned, sliding into the booth across from me. He saw the look on my face instantly. What happened? That was Josh, I whispered, the words barely audible. He turned subtly, his eyes scanning the room. From your old school? I nodded, my hands trembling. And he didn't know who I was. Of course he didn't, Leo said, a strange mix of satisfaction and something else I couldn't decipher in his tone. Tears welled up in my eyes. I didn't even know why. Was it relief? Was it grief? Who was I know? We walked home in silence, the weight of my transformation pressing down on me. When we got back, I ran into the bathroom and locked the door. I scrubbed at my face until my skin burned, tore out the clips, yanked off the necklace. But when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see Alex. No matter how hard I tried, he was gone. Later that night, Leo found me curled up in his bed, knees to chest. He sat beside me, rubbing my back with a gentle, comforting rhythm. "I know it's scary," he murmured. I didn't even sound like him anymore. I choked, my voice raw. I spoke, and my voice, it wasn't mine. "Maybe it is now," he said softly, his hand stroking my hair. I looked at her, my lip quivering. "I don't know who I am." He kissed my forehead, a tender gesture that sent a strange warmth through me. "You're mine," he whispered, and the words, though possessive, were also a comfort. The next morning, I stood in the shower, hoping the water would wash something away. The fear, the confusion, the ghost of Alex. My skin tingled constantly now. My chest, more than just sensitive, was undeniably growing, rounder, softer, feminine. And my voice. I'd been trying to clear my throat for days, blaming some imaginary cold, but it wasn't congestion. It was change. Real change. I turned off the water, wiped the steam from the mirror, and spoke aloud. "Hi, my name is Alex." But it came out, "Hi, my name is Riley." My hand flew to my mouth, a gasp escaping my lips. I tried again, but the consonants were lighter, the vowels breathier. My pitch had lifted, barely masculine at all. I stumbled back from the mirror, towel clutched around me like a lifeline. And in that moment, something shattered inside me, a final piece of the old Alex giving way to the new Riley. I didn't tell Leo right away. He was busy setting up what he called Riley's drawer in his room. Lipsticks, lotions, hair clips, perfume, and hormone supplements. Not just the mistaken pills anymore. She'd acquired new ones. Real dosages, he said, holding them like sacred relics. Measured, clean, what you actually need. I stared at the bottles in horror. "You want me to keep taking these?" He turned, his eyes piercing. "You want to keep changing Riley?" I didn't ask for this. "No," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "But you never said no." I felt lightheaded, dizzy with the realization. I'm losing my voice, my body. I don't even know who I am anymore. "You're finally becoming someone," he replied gently. "You've never looked more alive." I avoided the pills that day, but the next morning, I found one sitting on my makeup mirror. Just one, a small note taped beneath it. "Be honest. You miss her." I left the pill untouched, a small act of defiance. But I wore the necklace. At school, people had stopped calling me Alex completely. They whispered her when they thought I couldn't hear. Even my professors had started softening their tone, like they didn't know exactly who they were addressing, but were afraid to ask. It was the middle ground, worse than being called out, worse than being recognized, because it was the void, the limbo where you don't exist to anyone. That night, I got a text from my mom. "Can we talk soon? You've seemed distant." I stared at the screen for a long time, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. And then another message came through, one I didn't expect. "Did you pick up the wrong prescription?" They called me about something weird from the pharmacy. My stomach dropped. I felt the blood drain from my face. Leo noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" I showed him the message. He sat down beside me slowly, took the phone from my hand. "They can't know. Not yet. I have to tell her," I pleaded. "She thinks I'm sick or hiding something." He stared at me, his gaze intense. "No, you don't. She's my mom." Leo's voice dropped, becoming icy calm. "And if you tell her right now, she'll try to undo everything." I stood up, my voice rising in protest. "She's not you, Leo. She's not trying to manipulate me." Leo's eyes narrowed for a moment, a flicker of something sharp in their depths. Neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, "Then go. If that's what you want, go home. Go explain why your voice is softer, why you have curves, why you're wearing my perfume." I froze, the words echoing in my mind. "You're not ready." "I need time to think," I said, a desperate plea for reprieve. He nodded slowly. "But when you look in the mirror tonight and all you see is her, you'll know I was right." I left his house, didn't say goodbye, didn't take the pill, didn't wear the necklace. But even as I walked home, I caught my reflection in the darkened glass of store windows. And Riley looked back. She stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, worry tightening the lines around her eyes. "Alex," she said, but even that word didn't land right anymore. It felt foreign, mismatched, a name that no longer fit. I called the pharmacy, she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. They said you were mistakenly given estrogen pills for almost 2 weeks. I looked away, unable to meet her gaze. You took them. I nodded, a fresh wave of tears welling in her eyes, but she kept her voice even, remarkably calm. Why didn't you say anything? I didn't notice at first, I mumbled, the lie feeling flimsy, transparent even to my own ears. 2 weeks of hormones and you didn't notice? She asked, a rising disbelief in her tone. I thought it was anxiety meds, I offered, a desperate attempt at explanation. And after that, her voice cracked, a fragile sound that broke my heart. After the chest tenderness, after your voice changed. Silence. Her gaze drifted down my figure, taking in the subtle yet undeniable changes. Her mouth trembled. You're different. I know. Her eyes pleaded, searching mine for an answer. Do you want this? I opened my mouth to say no, to deny the undeniable, but I couldn't. Because somewhere inside, a quieter voice whispered, yes. I don't know, I whispered instead, the truth a tangled mess of fear and longing. She sat on the couch, her shoulders slumped. I stood in the doorway like a ghost, a stranger in my own home. Finally, she said, sit. I obeyed, sinking onto the cushion beside her, the familiar scent of home a strange comfort. Talk to me, please. I didn't plan this, I said, the words tumbling out in a rush. But when it started, I didn't want to stop. Leo did this to you. I froze, caught between two truths. No, I stammered, I mean, yes, but also no. My voice broke, tears blurring my vision. She saw me, and I didn't even know I needed to be seen. My mom's face crumbled, a wave of emotion washing over her features. I hadn't cried in front of her in years, but now the tears came in waves, a torrent of pent-up fear and confusion. She said I was always a pretty girl, I sobbed. And my mom did something I didn't expect. She held me, a fierce, comforting embrace that squeezed the air from my lungs, but filled my heart with a desperate, familiar love. We stayed like that for a long time, the only sounds the soft rhythm of our breathing and the quiet sobs that eventually subsided. And when I finally looked up, she smiled through her own tears, a gentle, understanding smile. You've always been beautiful, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Even when you were my little boy, I always thought you were gentle, sensitive. There was something in you I didn't understand, but I never judged it. I'm not trying to become someone else, I whispered, the words a plea for understanding. She wiped a tear from my cheek. You're not. You're uncovering someone who's been buried. I nodded slowly, a quiet acceptance settling over me. I don't know if I'm Riley forever, but right now I can't go back to Alex. Then don't, she said, her voice firm, unwavering. Not until you're ready. And maybe never. I went to bed in my old room, clean, neutral, familiar, yet somehow completely transformed. But the girl in the mirror followed me in. My skin still held the shimmer of Leo's perfume. My chest rose and fell differently. I touched my lips, still faintly pink from the gloss I had tried to wipe off earlier. And then I whispered, "Hi, my name is Riley," and it didn't feel like lying. The knock came just after midnight. I opened the door, and there she was. Leo, hair messy, eyes red and swollen, hoodie sleeves too long, breathless. "You didn't answer your phone," he said, his voice raspy with worry. "I needed space." "I know," he said, stepping into the room, his hands trembling. "But I couldn't wait. I just needed to see you to know if you hated me." I shook my head, a small, sad smile playing on my lips. "I was angry," I said. "But you weren't wrong." His eyes searched mine, a desperate plea for reassurance. "You are Riley," he said, a statement, not a question. "I think I am." He nodded slowly, a deep exhale of relief escaping his lips. "I have something to ask you," he said, his voice quiet, almost shy. I blinked, a flicker of curiosity. "What?" He pulled a small envelope from his jacket. Inside, a registration form for a local beauty pageant. "Miss Roseville." "Enter it," he whispered, his eyes burning with a fierce determination. "Prove she's real. Show them all who Riley is." I laughed, shaking my head in disbelief. Are you serious? His voice hardened, unwavering. It's time. And I didn't say no. The invitation to the party said casual, but Leo had other plans. You're not just showing up, he declared, his eyes sparkling with a familiar mischief. You're arriving. The dress he picked was a sleek black satin slip, delicate straps, a subtle shimmer hugging every curve my new body had started to form. He paired it with sheer tights, glossy heels that added an intimidating 5 inches to my height, and a smoky eye that made my own reflection take a step back in surprise. I shouldn't have agreed, but I'd already said yes to the pageant form. What was one party? The house pulsed with bass, flashing lights, laughter, and the distant murmur of drunk voices drifting through the night air. We arrived late on purpose, making an entrance. When we walked in, heads turned. Guys nudged each other. Girls narrowed their eyes. Some smiled, others whispered. I clung to Leo like a lifeline, my heart hammering against my ribs. This is too much, I whispered, my voice barely audible above the music. He squeezed my hand, a reassuring pressure. You're doing fine. I tried to believe him, tried to project an air of confidence I didn't feel. A familiar voice cut through the music, sharp and clear. Riley. I turned slowly. It was Caitlin, one of the girls I used to sit near in chem class, the kind of girl who wore flawless eyeliner and always looked like she was 2 seconds away from laughing at you. Now she was grinning, a predatory gleam in her eyes. Damn, girl. Didn't even recognize you. You look. She paused, eyes scanning me from head to toe, different. I nodded awkwardly. It's been a weird couple months. She leaned in, her voice dropping conspiratorially. Are the rumors true? Like you used to be. Leo stepped in before I could answer, his voice calm but firm. She doesn't owe you an explanation. Caitlin held up her hands, a mock-innocent gesture, just asking, but her smile never quite touched her eyes. The first hour passed in waves of anxiety and forced smiles. Leo disappeared to the kitchen, leaving me alone near the hallway mirror. I looked at myself, at Riley. She was tall, narrow-waisted, soft-eyed, a little shy, a little too eager to be liked. I tried to smile, to project the confidence Leo assured me I possessed. That's when the music cut off, an abrupt, jarring silence. Someone tapped the mic. Hey, party people, a voice shouted. We've got a very special guest tonight. Laughter rippled through the crowd, a collective anticipation. Then a screen lowered near the living room, a projection lit up, grainy, pixelated. My stomach turned cold. I knew that image. It was me, Alex, at age 16, in my sister's room, dressed in a pink skirt, spinning around with headphones in, a video I never knew was recorded. My legs buckled. Laughter exploded across the room. Someone shouted, "That's him from sophomore year." Another voice, "Wait, is that you now?" I backed away from the screen, hands trembling, breath catching in my throat, my eyes darting everywhere. Someone snapped a picture. Someone else said, "Dude," like I was a punchline. Caitlin was laughing, a cruel, triumphant sound. Leo came running, his face etched with concern, but I was already pushing through the crowd, out the front door, down the street, into the night. I ran until my heels snapped, then I took them off and kept going, barefoot, the rough pavement tearing at my skin. Tears streaked through my carefully applied makeup, Riley's perfect face smudged and broken. I ended up in a park, huddled on a bench, shaking. A couple walked by, stared, whispered. I curled up tighter and whispered, "I'm not her." But the voice didn't sound like mine. Later, Leo found me. He didn't say a word, just sat beside me and held my hand, his presence a quiet anchor in my storm of despair. "I didn't know they had that video," he said, his voice raw with regret. "I swear." "They laughed at me," I said, barely audible. "They saw me and they laughed." "You're stronger than them." I looked at him, mascara streaked, my face cracked wide open with grief. "I don't think I can do this." His voice was soft, but unyielding. "Then don't do it for them. Do it for her. For the girl who finally has a voice." I didn't leave Leo's house for 3 days. The video went around school, viral in a cruel, mocking way. The comments came in, some cruel, some confused, others disturbingly quiet. I became something to talk about online, in whispers, in group chats. The worst part, I couldn't deny any of it anymore. Leo did his best to shield me. He cooked, brushed my hair, turned off my phone, creating a small, safe bubble around me. He kissed my forehead and whispered, "You don't have to go back out there until you're ready." But the world kept spinning. My body kept changing. And Riley, no matter how hard I tried, wouldn't disappear. The first time I left the house again, it wasn't planned. Leo had run to the store. I stayed behind, needing air, needing something real. I found myself wandering down our street in sweatpants, my hoodie pulled over my messy hair, no makeup. I didn't look like Riley. I didn't look like Alex. I just looked lost. That's when he saw me. He was sitting on a park bench near the corner cafe. Tall, faded denim jacket, a book in his lap. He glanced up and didn't flinch, didn't laugh, didn't look away. I kept walking, then paused, sat on the bench beside him, one seat over. Silence stretched between us. He turned the page of his book. "You okay?" he asked finally, his voice soft, non-judgmental. I blinked. "Do I look okay?" "You look like someone who's trying very hard to not be themselves." That hit harder than I expected, a raw, honest observation. "You don't even know who I am." "Maybe," he said, looking at me now, his eyes kind. "But I know how you are." We talked about nothing at first, music, movies, books. Then he said, "You can tell me your name or not, but I'll tell you mine." "Ben." I nodded. "Riley." He smiled. "Pretty name." I looked away, a blush rising to my cheeks. It wasn't always mine. He paused, then said softly, "Doesn't matter. It is now." I laughed, just once, a short, sharp breath through my nose. "I'm kind of a disaster." "Pretty disaster," he said casually, flipping the page in his book. I turned to him, brows lifting. He met my eyes, a quiet challenge in his gaze. I said what I said. My heart fluttered, not from the compliment, but because I believed him. I didn't tell Leo that night. I didn't say I met someone. I didn't say he made me laugh, or that for the first time, I felt like Riley wasn't just something that happened to me. She was someone I might choose to be. The next day, I sat at Leo's vanity, staring at the makeup brushes. I picked one up, then another, and slowly, deliberately, began to do my face. Foundation, concealer, blush, liner, lips soft pink, hair brushed and clipped. Then I put on a light blouse and skinny jeans, looked at myself and whispered, "Hi, I'm Riley." Ben texted me later that afternoon. "Park again?" I wrote back, "Sure, I'll be there." "Pretty probably," he replied. I already knew that. Leo didn't ease into it. "You're doing this," he said, pulling out boxes of heels, corsets, breast forms, and padded undergarments like a war general assembling armor. "You've earned this moment." I stood still in his room, half terrified, half enchanted, as he spun around me with a measuring tape, pulling it snug around my new waist, lifting my chin to study my neckline, tilting my shoulders back to correct my posture. I was a canvas, and he was painting me into something exquisite. That night, we began training, walking in 5-inch stilettos, holding eye contact like a goddess, sitting, posing, turning, smiling, but never too wide, hands folded just so, chin angled toward the light. Leo drilled me like a pageant coach with something to prove. "This isn't pretend anymore," he said, his voice firm. "You're not passing, you're becoming." I wanted to argue, to cling to the last vestiges of my old self, but every time I looked in the mirror, Riley stared back. No costume, no hesitation, just her. The dress fittings happened at an upscale boutique Leo had connections with. He pulled strings, whispered names, said we had an emergency appearance. The tailor, a stoic woman with a discerning eye, didn't blink at my presence. "I love your bone structure," she said, holding up bolts of shimmering fabric.